Здравствуйте, товарищи. Welcome back to Russian Through Propaganda or Russian Through Poems and Paintings. We're on day 102, and after reviewing the major uses of each case yesterday, we're going to now look more carefully at the case endings, especially today for nouns. So the main topic today is just looking at the major types of noun and the endings. So we're going to start today by looking at another painting by Kustodiev, also entitled Maslenitsa. So the same theme and the same title for this painting today as the one we saw yesterday. This one is much more well known than the one yesterday. It's from 1916. Okay, so let's look over kind of some vocab, just the items I picked from the painting, and look at some sort of mock dictionary entries and recall, first of all, how those dictionary listings work and also what they tell us about what type of noun we're dealing with. This, of course, is a really important skill as you're just assimilating new vocabulary. So let's try to tell the gender. Is it hard or soft? And is there something else funny going on with the noun? So remember that in a typical dictionary, and this includes in a Russian dictionary, like an actual dictionary for Russians, of course, any listing of a noun will give you the nominative singular. Of course, that's the basic form of the noun, and that tells us a lot about it. But sometimes we also really need the genitive ending, for example, at the very least, to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with that noun. And so typically a good dictionary will, after the nominative singular, the full form, it will give you at the very least the genitive ending. And then it may give you some other irregular forms. If that's not really sufficient for that particular noun, it'll give you maybe the nominative plural. A lot of times, as we know, the nominative plural can be a little bit funny. It may give you additional case endings, if they're irregular in some way. But typically, again, the nominative singular and the genitive singular ending will tell you a lot about the noun. So let's go through these and just repeat. Повторите, пожалуйста. Let's refresh our pronunciation skills and just think about what type of noun is this. Гора. Повторите, пожалуйста. Гора. Okay, that's a hard feminine, right? Hard feminines end in a. And keep in mind, when we're talking today about hard versus soft, that's not some kind of mystery or some guessing game. We can always tell just by looking at the form, is it hard or soft, right? So is going to mark a hard feminine. A soft feminine would typically be marked by ya, right? The soft vowel version of a. Okay, next comes holm. Holm. Okay, that's a hard masculine. Now look at the genitive here. You see it's a stressed a. That's telling us that this is probably an in-stress noun, right? So there's something really important that you can get from that genitive ending is a stress pattern, especially for masculine nouns, right? Any ending we add to holm is going to be stressed. And the fact that the genitive singular ending is stressed here tells us that. Город. Okay, look at the plural, grada. This is one of these nouns, masculine nouns that has a plural in stressed a, right? That's unpredictable. We have to just simply know that. The plural of город is grada. Gradok, and then the genitive gradka. Now, what's going on there? Well, we have a mobile vowel, right? That ok is a diminutive masculine ending. A gradok is a small city or a town. And this genitive form is showing us that that is indeed a mobile vowel that drops out when we add an ending. Дерево, plural, деревья. Okay, there's another plural, irregular plural. Снег, okay, that's a hard masculine. Вранье, it's kind of a funny noun. It's a collective noun meaning a group of something. The normal word for crow is ворон. And here we have this weird neuter form. Okay, so it's a soft neuter, right? Remember, soft neuters will end in ye or yo. And we forgot to mention earlier that дерево is, of course, a hard neuter. Женщина, hard feminine. Мужчина, masculine. So remember, there are some masculine nouns that have feminine endings. And although they take feminine endings, they are indeed masculine. Right, so if we were going to say a nice man, добрый мужчина or something, right? Any adjective or noun or verb that goes along with this masculine noun is going to be masculine, but the noun itself, the endings, are going to look like feminine endings. Okay, so again, we could say that is a masculine noun, but it's taking hard feminine endings. Bashnya, bashnya, that's a soft feminine, tower. Kolokol, hard masculine, a regular plural, kalakala, right? So the plural is kalakala and not kolokoli or something, as you might guess. Kolakolnya, soft feminine. Krisha, hard feminine. Tsirkov, that's an E noun, right? So look, that's a really important class of nouns. You may remember they're feminine despite ending in a soft consonant. So we have to simply, when we see a word ending in a soft sound, we have to simply know, is it a soft masculine ending in a soft consonant, or is it one of these special feminine E nouns? And here on top of that, well, so actually I should step back. How do we know that if we looked up a word in a dictionary? Well, if the genitive singular ending is E, we know it's a feminine E noun. If the genitive ending is ya, we know it's a soft masculine. Here we get not only the ending E, but also tsierkvi, right? The full form, showing us that that O is a mobile vowel, right? So the genitive form is tsierkvi. Kupol, hard masculine, plural is kupala. So again, one of these irregulars that takes nominative plural in stressed a. Krest, krista. Okay, that's an in-stressed hard masculine adjective. So, for example, the nominative plural is kristi, right? Any ending we add to that is going to be stressed. Dim, hard masculine. Loshid, okay, see the E ending? That's telling us this is a feminine E noun, feminine. All E nouns are feminine. Oblaka, hard neuter. Plural is ablaka. Okay, there's a slightly unpredictable stress pattern. Zimlia, that's a soft feminine, of course. The plural is zemli. That's a rather predictable stress shift, actually, but gave it here just for the heck of it. Niaba, hard neuter. Plural, nibisa, again, an irregular plural. Vid, hard masculine. Sani, you see the genitive ending is going to be sanye. Okay, that's a plural only noun, so there's something a little bit different. Some nouns in Russian are only used in the plural, and quite often the English equivalent would be a singular noun, like a sleigh, right? Singular in English, but in Russian always plural, sani. And there you see the genitive ending also is a soft genitive plural ending, sanye. The diminutive of a sleigh is sanki, a sled, right? A small sleigh, also plural only, genitive plural, sanak. A branch, vietv. Okay, that's a feminine noun, right? We see the E ending there. And a diminutive of that, vietka, hard feminine. Okay, so now we've seen several examples. Let's look at this more systematically, right? For anything we talk about in Russian, it could be a person, an animal, or an object, right? It's always going to have grammatical gender. So anything, people, animals, objects can be he, she, or it, so to speak, in terms of Russian grammar. So we always have to be keeping that in mind, as you know. So let's look over, right? Masculines end in a consonant. A better way to put that is to say they have no ending, right? Zero ending. So home, right? Hard masculines end in a hard consonant. Garmoin, that's a soft masculine ending in a soft sign. That is a soft consonant. Another soft consonant is ikratkaya, right? So a word like muzey ending in an ikratkaya would also be a soft masculine. Okay, feminines, hard feminines end in a, soft feminines end in ya. Neuters, hard in o, and softs, it could be either ye or your, right? Finally, really important point, right? If you see a word ending in a soft sign, then in theory, you're not going to be able to know the gender unless maybe there's a clue, somewhere in the sentence or something like this. But you'll probably have to look it up, and then you have to really look at that genitive ending, right? Garmoin, the genitive ending is ya. That's a dead giveaway that this is a soft masculine noun, a soft masculine noun. If we look up vietv, we see that the genitive ending is e. That's therefore a feminine e noun, right? All e nouns are feminine. And finally, watch out for the nouns like mushina that take feminine endings but are actually masculine. And you can have hard nouns like that, like mushina, also soft ones like dyadya, right? Meaning uncle. It takes ya, so that's taking soft feminine endings. Okay, so let's start with feminine nouns and look over the noun ending. So this is a lot of information. Now, of course, we learned all this last year. And at this point, we have to assume you're familiar with this going forward, right? You may not have mastered every last bit of it. That would be a bit of a tall order, but we don't have time to review this, right? So try to review these endings as needed. Now, look at something really carefully because this will save you a lot of time. If you understand what's going on between these hard versus soft nouns. So think of the hard endings as the basic case endings, right? So you're thinking feminine nouns, think of hard as the default. First of all, the hard nouns are more numerous, right? So look at the pattern for gazeta, look that over. Now look over to a soft feminine like niedziela, and you'll see that the soft endings are almost always simply the soft versions of the hard endings, and that's what they are. That it's no surprise really, but as students, it's easy to forget that and feel overwhelmed, right? But you see that as long as you understand that, for example, the soft version of is going to be ya, then you don't really have to learn a separate soft ending. You just have to be aware of the softness versus the hardness, right? So that's an extremely useful thing to take note of. Similarly, go over to the next big class of feminine nouns, and there are tons of these. We're going to learn more about why that is later. The major reason is that a lot of them are borrowed nouns, like lexia, for example. Okay, those are those hard or soft? Well, obviously they're soft. Okay, so again, take a moment just to think about this very simply. Special soft nouns are soft nouns. And for the most part, they act just like ordinary soft nouns. Look over the endings, right? Ya, e, you, right? Compare that to ordinary soft nouns, and you see that they're almost indistinguishable. The only exceptions are the ones in the black box, right? The dative singular and the prepositional singular, especially, that one's quite common. Those are the only endings that force us to group or think of special soft nouns separately from ordinary soft nouns. So again, there's nothing really new to learn there except for these two exceptional forms. Finally, and this is really important, feminine E nouns have a totally different pattern. Historically, they were a totally different, it was a totally different set of noun endings, a different type of noun. And so they've survived to this day, and they do their own special thing. So feminine E nouns end in a soft consonant. And again, we have to simply know which nouns are E nouns, right? Because again, they could be, for all we know, they could be soft masculines. So look over those E nouns, and you see the E there in the singular column. A lot of endings in E. And again, okay, so let's think also, are these hard or soft? Soft, of course, right? So E nouns like titraj, we see it ends in a soft sign. So any ending we add to this is definitely going to be soft. Okay, so now that we've made sense of that, let's go back to our painting. And again, just kind of fill in some blanks. We're given here some feminine nouns. So let's look at the context and fill in the right form. Okay, so let's start with gara. Let's say we're standing on a mountain, or this is technically, I guess, a hill. Anyway, Mustaim na garia, prepositional. Ili na cholmia, or on a hill. There aren't a whole lot of mountains in sort of European Russia. So sometimes they'll say gara, and it's clear that they really mean basically a hill or something. It's not exactly right, the Alps. Okay, anyway. Mustaim na garia. From this mountain is opened a view onto the city, right? A view of the city opens from this mountain. С этой горы, right? Genitive открывается вид на город. So right? A gara is a na noun, as we discussed. We reviewed that a little bit. So on the mountain is nagaria. From the mountain is sgary. Dva bashnya. Okay, a soft feminine, a tower. Do you see these tall towers? Вы видите эти высокие башни? Right? Accusative plural. Do you see the tallest tower? Okay, accusative singular. Вы видите самую высокую башню? Remember the rule for feminines in the accusative, a becomes u, ya becomes you. Very simple. Keep in mind that if the feminine noun is an E noun and it doesn't have an a or a ya, then there'll be no change. So, for example, the accusative singular of tetrades is tetrades, right? It's not tetradziu or something. 3, колокольня, a bell tower. These towers are bell towers. Эти башни колокольни. Okay, it's kind of a definition, or we're explaining what these towers are. There are bell towers, nominative plural. In these bell towers are bells. В этих колокольнях есть колокола. So that в этих колокольнях, that's prepositional plural. 4, земля. On the ground lies snow. Okay, that's prepositional case. На земле лежит снег. Sleighs easily ride along the snowy ground. Сани легко катаются по снежной земле. All right, what case is that? Well, по takes the dative, as we reviewed quickly yesterday with those prepositions, right? По takes the dative. 5, санки. Okay, sleds. What are sleds? Санки – это маленькие сани. So sleds, or a sled, is a small sleigh. Do you see in the picture where the children are riding around on, okay, this will probably be plural. Now, of course, this word is always plural. So when you say na sankach, there is a bit of an ambiguity in the Russian, right? It could be on one sled or on multiple sleds. So you would rely on context. Here, if we're saying the kids are sledding, we probably have more than one sled, hopefully. So let's use plural. Вы видите на картине, где дети катаются на санках? Prepositional plural, hard noun. 6, сани. Okay, back to sleighs. Сегодня праздник Масленица. Today is Масленица, right? This holiday. People are riding around on, sleighs, right? Prepositional plural. Люди катаются, то есть ездят на санях. На санях. Okay, that stress in the plural is following the genitive plural stress, which is sanye. So that's a little stress pattern. By the way, if you're baffled about stress patterns in nouns, we're going to look at a couple of major patterns that are fairly predictable, and we're going to revisit this issue in great detail later in book 4. 7, женщина. Okay, do you see the woman in the middle of the painting? Okay, it's going to be an accusative, right? Вы видите женщину в центре картины? Who is riding together with this woman? Okay, with, right, accompaniment, instrumental. Кто катается вместе с этой женщиной? Right, ой is the ending there. 8, ветка, a little branch, a twig or something. On every branch, and even on every tiny twig, lies snow. Okay, на каждой ветви и даже на каждой маленькой ветке. Ветке, that's prepositional singular, on each twig. Лежит снег. Все сегодня в снегу. Everything is in snow, literally, meaning everything's covered in snow. 9, церковь. Okay, that's an E noun, as we just saw. It's got a mobile vowel, so we have to be careful. Above every church and every bell tower is a kupol, a cupola, like a dome, right? Like the onion domes, as we know, so that are so characteristic of Russian church architecture. Над каждой церковью и колокольней купол. А над каждым куполом золотой крест. And atop every dome is a golden cross. Again, that, as you would typically see in Russian churches. Okay, so here in the instrumental, the mobile vowel doesn't drop out. So that's a bit of a funny pattern there. Над каждой церковью и колокольней. Okay, to look at masculine nouns, we're going to switch to another painting called Vid Moskovskого Kremlya, a view of the Moscow Kremlin. Okay, there we have, it's the reason I picked the painting, right? We've got two masculine nouns, right? One, vid, is a hard masculine, and another very important noun, Kreml, is a soft masculine, right, ending in that soft L. So this is a view from 1879. Back in those times, the criminal walls were white, believe it or not. Okay, so let's look over some vocab related to the painting, just so we'll know what we're talking about. And I won't go into too much detail here. It's kind of boring, but just look over, again, these kind of mock dictionary entries and see what it's telling us about the entries, right? Not all of these are masculine, by the way. Nabrizhnaya, that's an embankment, right? The bank of a river. That's a feminine adjective, right? Remember, some adjectives can stand alone as nouns, and nabrizhnaya is an important one, especially in Petersburg, where there's so many canals and rivers and things. Okay, reka, hard feminine. Stina, hard feminine. Kolakolnya, we already saw, soft feminine. Dal, okay, and then the genitive is e. That's a feminine e noun. Birig, hard masculine. Note the irregular plural. Biriga. Kreml, soft masculine. Chram, hard masculine. Ariol, we see that the genitive is arla. That means this is a hard masculine with a mobile vowel. Dvarets, okay, another hard masculine with a mobile vowel. Let's review quickly what vowels can be mobile vowels in Russian. Well, or, ye, or your can all be mobile vowels. Can we always predict? Can we always tell when we're dealing with a mobile vowel? No, but sometimes you can kind of guess, right? So at the end of a masculine noun, if you have an or, ye, or your, that's kind of wedged in between two final consonants, you can at least guess that that could be a mobile vowel, right? If you wanted to be sure, you would have to look it up in a good dictionary. But one thing we'll pick up on as we're going through second year Russian is we'll start looking, especially in book 4, at a lot of these suffixes like yets. So a lot of nouns have this suffix yets, and when you see that, you can be confident that yeah is a mobile vowel. So getting used to these prefixes can really help you predict in a lot of cases when you're dealing with a mobile vowel. Another example we saw just a moment ago is gradok, right? Ok is a masculine diminutive ending. It's very common, and whenever you see that, you can be basically certain that is a mobile vowel. Although again, there always seem to be exceptions. Igrok, for example, is a player, and that sort of looks like a diminutive, but it's not a diminutive. By the way, igrok can also mean gambler. That's Dostoevsky has that book, a short novel called Igrok, right? The gambler. Okay, so that's not a mobile vowel, so we have to be on our toes with that stuff. Anyway, nieba, hard neuter. Дерево, hard neuter. Облако, hard neuter. Окно, hard neuter. Здание, special soft neuter. Okay, so let's look now specifically at masculine nouns. Look over the tables. Again, I don't want to talk about this all day, right? We did that enough last year. But again, just take a moment to make sense of this because it'll save you so much time. Look at the hard endings. Think of those as your default masculine endings. Those are really the only ones you have to learn here, right? So that cuts your work, makes your work a lot more manageable. Now, the only trick then is to look out for soft nouns and be sure to add the soft versions of those same endings, right? So again, compare, for example, the genitives, stala versus slavaria, right? We can't say slavara, right? That would turn a soft noun into a hard noun. But again, if you compare the endings, you'll see that as long as you keep the ending soft, the actual sound of the ending is the same. Again, for example, the vowel is ah, right? But instead of ah with the hard noun, we get ya for the soft noun. Okay, now look at the special soft masculines. There aren't very many of these, so that's one thing it's helpful to keep in mind, right? There are tons of special soft feminines and tons of special soft neuters, but there really aren't very many special soft masculines that are used commonly. You see one example of an animate masculine there, geni. But again, the only reason we have to think of these separately is for masculines. Actually, there's only one form. There's only one form that's different or unpredictable compared with the ordinary soft nouns, and that is the prepositional singular, criterii, for example, ee. By the way, for masculines, remember we have to group animates separately, right? For example, student, right, is an animate noun, and those accusative forms look like genitive forms for masculines, right? So we talked about that a lot last year. And by the way, to back up for a moment to the feminine nouns, I didn't mention, what about feminine animates? Are those important? Yes, they are, but only in the accusative plural, right? So look at those forms. Dotchka is actually a diminutive form meaning daughter. So in the accusative singular, that acts like any feminine noun, dotchko. There's nothing special about animate feminines in the singular, but in the plural, right, just like animate masculines, they look like genitive plural endings, right? So dotchik, we get that zero ending, right? A zero ending genitive plural form instead of, for example, dotchki, as we might guess, right? So keep an eye out for animate feminines and animate masculines when you're thinking about your accusative forms. Okay, so let's fill in a few blanks and describe the painting, working now with masculine nouns. Okay, from this shore, or from this, Bierig is a shore or a bank, like a river bank. From this bank of the Moscow River is opened, right, passive verb, a wonderful view onto the Moscow Kremlin. So I'm just translating very literally. Remember that the Moscow Kremlin is the most famous Kremlin, but a lot of old Russian towns have a Kremlin. That was just the old fortified center of the old Russian city. Okay, so Bierig is a flat surface. It's a noun, and so we say from this shore, right, from this bank, с этого берега. С этого берега Москвы-реки открывается прекрасный вид на Московский Кремль. Okay, so that's the genitive singular ending. Два, храм. Okay, a chram is a church, especially like a large church or an old church. В самом центре картины, in the very center of the painting, we see a blank. Okay, that's masculine inanimate, so мы видим храм. We see a church. А рядом с, right, so we need instrumental, рядом с храмом колокольню, right, alongside, next to the church, we see a bell tower. We're, of course, talking about the church, the little ensemble of churches and the big bell tower there inside the Kremlin. Три, Кремль, okay, a soft masculine. In the Moscow Kremlin, there are churches, bell towers, palaces, and other buildings. В Московском Кремле есть храмы, колокольни, дворцы и другие здания. Okay, that's, of course, prepositional singular. В Московском Кремле. Четыре. Okay, let's work again with Кремль. The Kremlin now has red walls, but at one point, as we see in the painting, they were white. У Кремля, right? There's the, what case do we need there? Well, we just need to remember that u takes the genitive. У Кремля, at the Kremlin, or again expressing possession, the Kremlin now has красные стены, но когда-то, как мы видим в картине, они были белыми. Note that instrumental predicate adjective, right? They were once white. Пять, орел. Okay, remember this is we have a mobile vowel. Орел means eagle. Two-headed eagles, the two-headed eagles on the towers of the Kremlin are symbols of the Russian Empire. Двуглавые орлы на башнях Кремля символы Российской империи. Okay, двуглавый, it's kind of a funny old adjective. A glava is an older form of the word, the modern Russian word голова, meaning head. So something that's двуглавый has dvie головы. So these two-headed eagles, you probably know that's the old imperial symbol, and they were taken down everywhere after the Bolshevik Revolution, but now they've made a bit of a comeback, right? So anyway, of course, in the Kremlin, they replaced the old two-headed eagles with the red stars that are still on the Kremlin towers there. Okay, finally, let's look at neuters quickly, and let's switch to a third painting today, Chornoye Moria, the Black Sea, by Ivazovsky. Ivazovsky was known for his seascapes. He was really great at painting the sea, especially stormy seas. So he has a lot of really dramatic and really large canvases that you'll definitely see if you go to the major Russian art museums. So, Chornoye Moria. Moria is a soft neuter, right? Okay, so let's look at just a few nouns again that we'll need to talk about this painting. Volna, hard feminine. Ветер, hard masculine with a mobile vowel, right? Vietra is the genitive singular. Burya, that's a soft feminine. Tucha, hard feminine. Kорабль, okay, what's that? Well, look at the ya, genitive singular. Корабля, that is a soft masculine, and we can also tell that that's going to be an in-stressed masculine. Okay, so again, any ending we add to that is going to be stressed. For example, the nominative plural, ships, is going to be корабли, корабли. Лодка, that's a small little boat, like a rowboat or something. Лодка, that's a hard feminine. Небо, hard neuter again. Облако, hard neuter. Море, soft neuter. Okay, look over the neuter nouns. Now, again, same old story. Start with the hard neuters. That's really the only set of endings you need to learn here. And here it's even easier because, as you may know, neuters and masculines originally, sort of historically, they belonged to the same class of nouns. They had the same endings, basically. And that's true still today with just a couple of exceptions. The main one being that the neuter plurals end in "a." Right, so be sure and remember that. That's really important. People tend to forget it sometimes. So the plural of окно is окна, right? So we have a stress shift there as well. We'll review that later. But anyway, look at the main point is the ending "a." I guess the other major exception is in the genitive plural, right? Neuters have zero endings, just like feminines, right? So åken is the genitive plural ending. But otherwise, if we look over like the dative окну, prepositional окне, instrumental окном, right, they look pretty much like the masculine endings we already saw. Okay, so if we shift over to the soft endings, we have simply the soft versions of the hard endings, right? I guess the only trick there would be to remember that for neuter softs, that soft ending in the nominative could be ye or yo. It just depends on the noun. Remember that if we're going to have yo, it's got to be stressed, right? You can only have yo in that stressed position. Finally, we have special soft neuters. There are tons of those. We're going to learn why later in this book. But for now, just look those over. Again, remember that these are special soft neuters in all forms except for one, right? They work like ordinary neuters. Okay, let's quickly fill in some neuters here to describe the painting. On the Black Sea is a storm, right? There's a storm on the Black Sea. На Черном море буря. Вдали мы видим одну маленькую лодку. Куда она плывет? In the distance we see a single tiny ship, tiny boat. To where is it underway by water? If we're unpacking that determinate motion verb, right? Where is it sailing to? Два, солнце, the sun. Okay, look at this noun for a moment. It's a little bit tricky. I would normally just classify it as a soft neuter, right? It certainly looks like one, but it's a bit odd actually if you think about it. And I think the best way to deal with it is to remember the spelling rules from last year. Remember, those are universally valid. So let's go through here and see what happens. The sun is not shining. Okay, there we need the nominative. That's easy. Солнце не светит. Today there is no sun. That's нет. That's going to need the genitive, right, for the non-existence. Сегодня солнца нет. Okay, so look at what's going on there. We might be tempted to write a ya there because, of course, again, it looks like an ordinary soft neuter. But basically, the 8-letter spelling rule would remind us that we can't do that. We can't write ya after tse. Instead, we have to write a, right? So son sa. Let's see, blank cover clouds. Okay, this is one of those sentences that's grammatical, in terms of the endings, it can be a little bit tricky, right? Because after all, облака could be, that's the plural of облако, a neuter plural, so that could be nominative plural or accusative plural, right? With neuters, we have no way of knowing. So there we have to rely both on grammatical context and just common sense when we're analyzing examples like this. Here we have both, right? The sun isn't going to cover the clouds, obviously. But grammatically, we also have another clue here, the plural verb, right? Zakrivayut, zakrivayut. Clearly a plural verb, and that tells us that ablaka, that plural clouds, is the subject of the sentence. Right, so there are any number of reasons here that the meaning of the sentence is obvious. But of course, some examples are a lot trickier, and you have to be careful analyzing, watch the endings, use common sense, look for surrounding clues and whatnot. Because remember that word order is often of very little help. So basically here we need an accusative, we need a direct object, солнце. Солнце закрывает облака. 3. Небо. In the sky, literally on the sky, clouds are flying past one after the other, right? This is a determinate motion verb, right? They're flying by, right? Not flying around. На небе облака летят одно за другим. Let's see, blank is dark and gloomy. Okay, sounds like we need a subject. Небо темное и мрачное. 4 облака. There's that word for cloud in the singular. The waves in the sea are going one after the other. And again, we have this determinate motion verb, right? The waves are going by, they're being driven by the wind. They're not being driven in circles, right? You can visualize that hopefully. Волны в море идут одна за другой, так же, как на небе летят. Okay, we need a plural verb. Летят облака, облака. Right, so the waves in the sea are going by one after the other, just like in the sky, the clouds are flying past one after the other. 5. Стихотворение. That's a long word meaning a poem. We see it's a special soft neuter. In the following poem of Afanasi Fiet, or we'd say by Afanasi Fiet, it is written, right, a passive verb about the very same kind of sea, right? That is, it is written about a stormy sea. Okay, so that's a very awkward passive kind of literal translation there. We could just say in English that Fiet writes of, or he describes the same kind of sea. Anyway, what form do we need? Well, this is the one we've got to watch out for with special soft neuters, right? In the poem, that's going to be стихотворение, right? E. Note the spelling there. If we're saying that very clearly, it's two syllables. В следующем стихотворении Афанасия Фета пишется о таком же море. Okay, so as that final example suggests, today's poem is by Afanasi Fiet, and it's a description of a stormy sea. It's a nice little poem. So again, for these poems, I'll be posting them separately, but and you'll notice that there's one almost every day, and kind of like the propaganda poster slogans last year, the poems aren't chosen by random. They'll usually point out something that's in some way related to the grammar we've looked at during the lesson. So look for that separate video if you're interested in poetry, and I'll see you next time. До свидания, товарищи.